What if I told you that the heartwarming reality show we all grew up watching was hiding a secret so dark, so calculated, that it tore a family apart for good? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are doing a deep dive into what I believe is one of the most shocking betrayals in reality TV history. We are talking about the Roloff family, specifically the heartbreaking exile of Zach and Tori Roloff from Roloff Farms. The official story is that they simply moved for a change of scenery or for a new adventure. But if you buy that, I have a bridge to sell you. We are pulling back the curtain today to investigate the allegations that this was never about a peaceful transition. Instead, we are looking at evidence of a calculated, malicious squeeze-out plan, orchestrated by Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler, allegedly designed to erase Amy Roloff's legacy and push Zach and Tori out, potentially swindling them out of a $5 million legacy. Today, we are exposing the truth. And hey, before we dive into the conspiracy, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel because we are going deep into the dark side of reality TV today. But first, let's set the scene. For over 20 seasons, Little People Big World has given us a front row seat to the lives of the Roloff family on their beautiful farm in Oregon. It was the American dream, a sprawling property with a pumpkin patch that drew thousands of visitors, a big red barn, and a family that, despite their differences, seemed to stick together. The patriarch, Matt Roloff, and his ex-wife, Amy, bought that land back in 1990. It wasn't just a piece of property, it was their life's work, the backdrop for their kids growing up. And for years, there was an understanding that the farm would stay in the family. We all watched Zach, Matt's son, grow up on that farm. He worked there, he fell in love there, and he got married there. It was supposed to be his inheritance. So what happened? How did we get from a hopeful succession plan to Zach and his wife Tori packing up their kids and driving that short distance from Oregon to Washington, reportedly with their relationship with Matt in tatters? According to insider reports, and if you read between the lines of what has been said on the show, Zach was essentially forced out. The narrative that Matt tried to spin was that his boys didn't want the farm or that the timing wasn't right. In a May 2022 Instagram post, Matt claimed that my twin boys decided not to consider working together toward a possible joint sale, and that the timing was not right for them to purchase a part of the farm at this time. He pushed the idea that he was offering a generous family discount, but the kids just weren't interested. But here's the thing, that is a complete fabrication. Zach fired back on social media, calling Matt's post a new shocking low of cowardice and manipulation. This was an explosive moment. It confirmed that the picture-perfect family was completely fractured. It wasn't that Zach didn't want the farm, it was that Matt didn't want to give it to him on anything other than impossible terms. Sources indicate that when the negotiations went down, things were hostile. Zach claimed that Matt and his partner, Caryn, were essentially telling him he and his family were not good enough to handle the farm. Think about the psychological weight of that. Your father telling you that you aren't good enough to run the legacy he built right in front of you and your wife. Now, let's talk about the $5 million alleged scam. This is where the story gets really ugly. While we don't have bank statements, we do know that Matt put 16 acres of the farm on the market, the portion that included the original family home, for $4 million. Here's the critical question: who was that sale designed to benefit? The allegations swirling around the community are that Matt and Caryn were more interested in cashing out than preserving the family legacy. Caryn, Matt's now fiancée, has long been accused by fans and insiders of being a gold digger. When she got involved with Matt, the narrative suggests that the plan changed from keeping the farm in the family to sell it for top dollar so we can fund our lavish lifestyle. When Zach expressed interest, he was reportedly met with a price tag he couldn't possibly afford, and he was specifically interested in the north side of the property, which held sentimental value for him, especially the forest and creek areas he loved. There are accusations that Matt purposely offered a deal so skewed and likely orchestrated by Caryn that it would ensure the sale would fail, allowing them to sell to an outside buyer for a massive profit. This wasn't just a negotiation, it was a hostile takeover. The accusation is that Caryn used her influence to push Zach out of the picture so she could secure the cash windfall for herself and Matt. Why would she do that? Because if Zach had bought the farm, the legacy would have continued and the potential financial upside for Matt and Caryn as a couple would have disappeared. They needed the liquidity. This allegedly set the stage for the final act of betrayal, erasing Amy Roloff's legacy. Amy had already sold her share of the farm to Matt in 2019 for nearly $1 million, a decision she later expressed regret over. But the ultimate disrespect was what came next. If the farm was sold to a stranger, the memory of Amy raising her children there would be erased. The sale of the original family home and the red barn were directly symbolic of wiping her, and by extension her son Zach, out of the family history. The truth is that the move to Washington wasn't a new adventure. It was a desperate escape. Zach and Tori had to leave the state to get away from the toxicity. They had to protect their children. They had to start a new life because the one they were promised at Roloff Farms was stolen from them by people who were supposed to love them. The rift was so deep that Zach admitted he and his father were not on speaking terms. Zach even confessed that the way they got to Washington was not good, and that other people's actions were not right. That is a devastating admission from a son to a father. This brings us to the core of the betrayal. We are witnessing a classic case of greed and manipulation. If you want to understand Caryn's role, just look at the optics. She was an employee who started dating her boss. She was heavily involved in the negotiations, reportedly sitting at the table when Zach and Tori tried to hash things out. But it turned out that the meeting was a disaster. Zach described the meeting as Matt coming in hot, but the reality is that Matt and Caryn allegedly presented an ultimatum that left Zach with no option but to walk away. It is a sickening display of how power and money can destroy a family. But perhaps the most telling piece of evidence of this conspiracy is what happened after the sale fell through. The farm didn't sell. After failing to find a buyer for $4 million, Matt just pulled it off the market. If the farm was such a burden, why not take a lower offer? Why pull it down if not to prove a point? It suggests that the goal wasn't to sell the land, the goal was to ensure Zach didn't get it. It was a punitive action. It was Matt saying, if I can't sell it to you for the maximum profit, no one gets it. It was a power move to reassert control over the family and, quite frankly, to hurt Zach for trying to take the reins. Now, it sits as a rental property, and reportedly, Matt even told Amy he'd leave it to her in his will. A bizarre move given the acrimony. Welcome back to the channel. If you're just joining us, we're in the middle of exposing the alleged conspiracy behind Zach and Tori Roloff's shocking departure from Roloff Farms. We laid out the foundation, the negotiations that went sour, the accusations of manipulation, and the alleged $5 million squeeze-out scam involving Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler. But we've only scratched the surface. Now, we need to go deeper into the psychology of this betrayal and understand exactly why this move was so devastating, not just for Zach and Tori, but for the entire Roloff family legacy. And before we get into the thick of it, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue digging into stories like this that the mainstream media won't touch. Let's talk about what was really at stake here. This wasn't just about a piece of land. Roloff Farms represented something far greater than acreage and pumpkin patches. For Zach, that farm was his childhood. It was where he learned to drive tractors, where he had his first kiss, where he proposed to Tori in that beautiful pumpkin patch that became iconic to fans of the show. The emotional attachment Zach had to that property cannot be overstated. When you watch old episodes of Little People, Big World, you see a little boy running around those fields with his twin brother Jeremy, completely carefree. That land held memories of his mother Amy cooking in that kitchen, of his father building that massive pirate ship play structure, of family dinners and holidays and celebrations. It was the only home Zach had ever truly known. So, when Matt and Caryn allegedly presented Zach with terms that were impossible to meet, they weren't just rejecting a business deal. They were rejecting Zach himself. They were telling him that his history, his memories, his birthright meant nothing compared to the bottom line. And let's be real here, the family discount that Matt claimed to offer was reportedly a joke. Sources close to the family have suggested that the price tag was so inflated that even if Zach had taken out massive loans, he would have been drowning in debt for decades. It was designed to fail. It was a trap disguised as an opportunity. But here's the part that really gets under my skin: the alleged involvement of Caryn Chandler in orchestrating this whole debacle. Now, I want to be careful here because I'm not in the business of making baseless accusations, but the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. Caryn started working on the farm as a manager, she was an employee, and then suddenly she's in a romantic relationship with Matt, and shortly after, the entire family dynamic shifts. The timing is just too convenient to be coincidental. We've seen this pattern before in families with significant assets. A new partner comes in, and suddenly the children from previous marriages are pushed out of the inheritance picture. It's a tale as old as time. What makes this even more disturbing is that Caryn had no biological connection to the Roloff children. She didn't raise Zach, she didn't change his diapers, or help him with his homework, or watch him struggle with the challenges of being a little person in a world not built for him. So, when she sits at that negotiation table, allegedly influencing Matt to squeeze out his own son, what exactly is her motivation? It's not maternal love, that's for sure. It's self-interest. It's ensuring that she and Matt have a comfortable retirement funded by the sale of assets that should have been passed down to the next generation. And if that means destroying a father-son relationship in the process, well, that's just collateral damage. Amy Roloff's role in this tragedy cannot be ignored either. Remember, Amy sold her share of the farm to Matt back in 2019. At the time, she probably thought she was making a clean break, taking her money, and moving on to start a new chapter of her life. But hindsight is 2020, and Amy has since expressed regret about that decision, because what she didn't anticipate was that Matt and Caryn would use that sale as leverage against her children. Once Amy was out of the picture as a co-owner, Matt had total control. He could set whatever terms he wanted, he could play games with the pricing, he could dangle the farm in front of Zach like a carrot on a stick, and then yank it away at the last second. And that's exactly what he allegedly did. Now, let's address the elephant in the room, the public narrative versus the private reality. On the show, everything was sanitized. The producers made it look like a simple business disagreement, something that could be resolved with a family meeting and some heartfelt conversations. But that's not real life. Real life is messy. Real life is watching your father choose money over family. Real life is realizing that the person you trusted most in the world has been manipulating you for years. The producers of Little People, Big World have a vested interest in keeping the drama contained, in making sure the show continues to air, in protecting the Roloff brand. So they present a watered-down version of events that makes everyone look sympathetic. But we're not buying it. Let's look at the evidence that Zach and Tori were genuinely hurt by all of this. They didn't just quietly move to Washington and never speak of it again. They spoke out. Zach posted that scathing Instagram response to Matt's post, calling it a new shocking low of cowardice and manipulation. That's not the language of someone who simply disagreed on a price. That's the language of someone who feels betrayed, deceived, and utterly broken by someone they loved. Tori, too, has been vocal about the pain of the situation. She's spoken about the emotional toll it took on their marriage, on their children, on their mental health. These are not people who made a casual decision to relocate. These are people who were forced to flee a toxic environment to save themselves. And consider the children in all of this. Zach and Tori have 3 kids, including their son Jackson, who is also a little person. Jackson adores his grandfather Matt. He loved visiting the farm. He loved riding on the tractors and playing in the pumpkin patch. And now, because of this ugly dispute, Jackson's relationship with his grandfather is fractured. He doesn't get to see the farm anymore. He doesn't get to run through the fields that his father ran through as a boy. That legacy, that multi-generational connection to the land has been severed. And for what? For a few $1,000,000? For the satisfaction of winning a power struggle? It's a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions. Now, I want to talk about the broader implications of this story, because this isn't just about the Roloffs. This is about a pattern that we see in families all over the world, especially families with significant wealth or assets. When money enters the equation, relationships change. People who once loved each other become adversaries. Siblings who once played together in the backyard become rivals over inheritance. Parents who once doted on their children become gatekeepers of assets, using them as tools of control and manipulation. The Roloff family drama is a microcosm of a much larger societal issue, and it's heartbreaking to watch. But there's also a lesson here for all of us. If you come from a family with assets, or if you're building a legacy for your own children, please take note of what happened to the Roloffs. Communication is everything. Transparency is everything. If Matt had sat down with Zach from the beginning and laid out a clear, fair, and honest plan for succession, none of this would have happened. Instead, he allegedly chose manipulation. He chose secrecy. He chose to blindside his own son with impossible terms, and now he's lost that son. He's lost access to his grandchildren. He's lost the respect of millions of fans who once adored him. Was it worth it? I don't think so. And let's not forget the alleged $5 million angle. Where did that figure come from? We've heard whispers that when all the assets were tallied up, the land, the buildings, the equipment, the intellectual property rights to the show, the total value of what Zach should have inherited was in the ballpark of $5 million. And allegedly, Matt and Caryn structured the deal in such a way that Zach would have to walk away with nothing or next to nothing. That's the squeeze out, that's a scam. It's a way of disinheriting someone without actually disinheriting them. You make the terms so unfavorable that the person has no choice but to decline. And then you claim that they didn't want it. It's a classic gaslighting technique, and it's utterly despicable. So where does that leave us? Zach and Tori are now building a new life in Washington. They've bought a beautiful new home. They're focusing on their family, their YouTube channel, and their various business ventures. They seem happy, or at least happier than they were when they were trapped in the toxic dynamics of Roloff Farms, and that's a testament to their resilience. They didn't let this destruction define them. They picked up the pieces and moved forward, but that doesn't mean they've forgiven or forgotten. The wounds are still there, and they may never fully heal. Meanwhile, Matt and Caryn are still on the farm. The farm didn't sell. It's now a rental property, and the family home that held so many memories is being lived in by strangers. The red barn still stands, but the spirit of the place is gone. It's a hollow shell of what it once was, and Matt, for all his money and all his land, is now a lonely figure. He's alienated his sons. He's lost his connection to the next generation. He's become a cautionary tale about what happens when you prioritize money over relationships. It's a sad ending for a man who once had it all. But let's be clear, the true victims of this saga are Zach and Tori and their children. They were the ones who were pushed out. They were the ones who had their dreams crushed. They were the ones who had to start over from scratch. And they did it with grace, dignity, and strength. They didn't air all their dirty laundry in public. They didn't launch smear campaigns against Matt and Caryn and they just left. They quietly moved on. And that, in my opinion, says everything about their character. Now, I want to open up the discussion to you, our viewers. What do you think about this entire situation? Do you believe Matt and Caryn were in the wrong? Do you think Zach and Tori were right to walk away? Or do you think there's another side to this story that we haven't heard yet? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you check out our other videos where we explore the hidden dynamics of reality TV families. There's always more to the story than what you see on the screen. You just have to be willing to dig a little deeper. And finally, I want to leave you with this thought. Family is the most important thing we have. Money comes and goes, land comes and goes, fame comes and goes, but family is forever. When you burn bridges with your family over money, you end up alone. And no amount of money can fill that void. So if you're watching this video and you've been in a similar situation, I hope you find the strength to prioritize the relationships that matter. I hope you choose love over money. I hope you choose connection over control, because in the end, that's all that really matters. Thank you so much for watching this 2-part expose. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive. We've got plenty more stories to uncover, and we're just getting started. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.